In the old days of African kingdoms, power did not only live in the open, it also lived in the dark, behind palace walls, behind quiet doors, behind the steps of kings. There were places where shadows moved before sunrise, places where a whisper could end a life, places where a king could be strong in the daytime, but helpless at night. Every kingdom had warriors, chiefs, and guards, but some kingdoms had something more, something hidden, something dangerous, something the world was never meant to know. Before we begin, if you want more forgotten mysteries, more hidden kingdoms, and more powerful stories Africa was never allowed to tell, click subscribe to Ancient Africa Untold, because what you are about to hear has been buried for centuries. Tonight, we open a secret that has slept for hundreds of years. A mystery that still has no clear answer. It begins with a king loved by some, feared by many, and watched by everyone. His name was King Agaja of Dahomey. History tells us he died of natural causes, a simple death, a quiet end. But the whispers tell another story, a story of betrayal, a story of hidden hands, a story of an elite group known only as the Night Seekers, silent killers who served the throne, protected the throne, and sometimes removed the throne. So, the question remains, did King Agaja truly die on his own? Or was he taken by the shadows he once commanded? Tonight, we follow this mystery. We follow the secrets behind African kings. We follow the assassins who shaped kingdoms, then disappeared into history as if they never lived. This is the story Africa remembers in whispers, and the world has never heard in full. This is the secret assassins of the African kings. The story begins on a quiet night in the kingdom of Dahomey, a night that should have been like any other. But before dawn, everything changed. King Agaja, one of the strongest rulers in the history of Dahomey, was found dead. No warning, no illness, no final words, just silence. A silence that did not match the power he carried. The official record said his death was natural, a simple end to a long reign. But the people did not believe this, and the palace did not believe it either. Rumors began to move like wind through the royal halls. Some said the king was poisoned by someone close to him. Some said he was betrayed by a family member who wanted the throne. Others whispered that Agaja did not die peacefully at all, that he was secretly executed by those sworn to protect him. Whispers grew into fear, fear grew into questions, and the questions refused to die. Because in Dahomey, murder was not always loud. Sometimes it was quiet, careful, planned, done in the dark, by people who lived in the dark, people known as the Night Seekers. But who were they? And why would they kill the king they were trained to protect? To answer that, we must follow the first thread of this mystery, a thread that leads deep into the heart of the palace. Some believe the Dahomey Amazons, the fierce women warriors, may have been involved. Not all of them, but a special unit hidden inside the larger army. Women trained for one purpose, to carry out orders too risky to be spoken in daylight. Others believed a rival prince wanted Agaja gone, a prince born with royal blood, but not chosen to rule. Someone who waited for a moment of weakness, someone who watched from the shadows. But there was a third possibility, one more dangerous than the rest, a hidden assassin guild that served the throne, but not the king. A group that answered to no family, no chief, no minister. A group that existed only to protect the kingdom, even if it meant removing the ruler. This guild was silent, invisible, unknown to most of the people in the palace. Their loyalty was to the future of Dahomey, not to the man who sat on the throne. So which one of these forces was behind the king's death? Was it the Amazons? Was it a jealous prince? Or was it the hidden guild with no name, no face, and no fear? For years, there were no answers, only rumors, only guesses, only stories told in secret. Until one day, something unexpected appeared, a sealed royal document, found deep inside the old palace grounds, locked away for generations, untouched, unopened. The seal was marked with the royal crest and a strange symbol linked to the Night Seekers. When the document was finally opened, the truth inside did not match the official history. The words inside changed everything. The direction of the investigation turned sharply. Old beliefs collapsed. New questions exploded into light. The death of King Agaja was not simple. It was not peaceful, and it was not natural. The shadows around him were real. And this document proved that those shadows had moved on the night he died. But who controlled them, and why? To answer that, we must travel to a kingdom known for poison, secrets, and silent death. We must go to Benin. To understand the death of King Agaja, we must leave Dahomey for a moment and travel to another powerful kingdom. A kingdom known across West Africa for its skill, its art, and its secrets. The kingdom of Benin. Benin was famous for many things: its bronze works, its warriors, its walls. But beneath all of that, beneath the pride and the beauty, there was something else. A hidden world. A world of poison, shadows, and quiet death. Here, in the royal palace, lived a woman named Omozele. Her name is rarely written in history, but her story lives in the memories of the old people. They say Omozele was a master of plants. She knew which leaves healed wounds, and which leaves could stop a heartbeat. She knew roots that could cure sickness, and roots that could bring sickness without a trace. Omozele served the palace. She made medicines for the chiefs, for the warriors, and for the Oba, the king of Benin. But she also had another duty, a darker duty, a duty that no one spoke of in public. When the king needed someone removed, quietly, Omozele was called, and she never refused. She was not the only one. She was part of a secret group that operated inside the palace, a group known in whispers as the Silent Hands. The Silent Hands were not soldiers. They did not fight with swords or spears. Their weapons were smaller, simpler, more deadly. A small bottle, a drop of oil, a powder hidden in food, a drink prepared with care, but meant to take a life. These assassins were used to remove people who threatened the peace of the kingdom, rivals who challenged the Oba, chiefs who used their power for greed, foreign spies who entered Benin with lies and secret plans. The Silent Hands were exact, patient, and invisible. Their methods were many. Sometimes they used oil-based poisons, rubbed on clothing or skin, causing slow collapse. Sometimes they slipped deadly herbs into ceremonial wine, a drink meant for peace, but turned into death. Sometimes they used rare forest plants that caused death to look natural. No marks, no pain, no sign of violence. A slow kill plant here, a poisoned broth there, a handshake that sealed a man's future without him even knowing. This was the world Omozele belonged to, a world where knowledge was power, and poison was a tool of the crown. For many years, this group worked in silence. The people feared them, the chiefs respected them, foreign visitors suspected them, but no one ever proved their existence. Not until a surprising discovery came from outside Africa. More than a century later, in a dusty British archive, a notebook was found. Inside it was a report written by a colonial officer during his time in West Africa. He wrote about many things: markets, chiefs, wars, but one line stood out. "I have come to fear the king's invisible doctors. They kill without blade. They leave no mark. No man can escape them." Invisible doctors, silent hands, the same idea, the same shadow. This small note, written in fear by a foreign observer, proved what Benin had always kept hidden. The kingdom had a trained group of poisoners who could kill without being seen. But the question that matters most is this: could these poison masters have been connected to the death of King Agaja? Benin and Dahomey were rivals, but also neighbors. They traded, they spied on each other, their courts watched each other closely. So it is possible, very possible, that something or someone from Benin played a quiet role in Dahomey's mystery. Omozeli and the Silent Hands show us that in Africa, not all killing was done with swords. Some deaths came from knowledge, patience, and silence. And now, to follow the next clue in King Agaja's death, we must travel to a kingdom where shadows did not only hide poison, they hid judgment. A place where even kings feared their own advisors. A place where secrets lived inside a council with great power. We must go to Ashanti. To understand the true power of secret killers in Africa, we must travel east, into the forests and gold-rich lands of the Ashanti Empire. A kingdom known for wealth, discipline, and one of the strongest military systems in West Africa. But behind the golden stool, behind the drums and the chiefs, there was a force greater than the army, a force that lived in silence, a force that advised kings, and sometimes removed them. This force was known as the Nyansapo Council. Its name meant the wisdom knot, a knot of minds, a knot of secrets, a knot that only the wise could untangle. The Nyansapo Council served the Asante, the king of the Ashanti, but their loyalty was complicated. They existed to protect the king, yes, but they also existed to protect the kingdom itself. And if a king became a danger to his own people, the council had the power to decide that he must fall. No trial, no public announcement, no loud removal. Just a quiet decision made by a group of elders who held the future in their hands. Many kings lived peacefully with the council, others did not, and in those times, shadows moved through the palace. Shadows with orders, shadows with no fear. One of the darkest stories connected to the Nyansapo Council is the story of Prince Mensa, a prince born with royal blood, a prince expected to rule, a prince prepared for the golden stool, but he never reached that moment. The night before his coronation, he died suddenly. No sickness, no warning, no struggle. The palace released a simple message: the spirits have taken him. And that was the end. There was no ceremony, no burial known to the people, no details shared. But the whispers say something else. They say the prince was smothered quietly in his sleep, a pillow pressed gently over his face, no marks left behind, no witnesses, only silence. Why? Some say the prince had angered powerful elders. Some say he had plans that threatened the balance of the empire. Some say he refused to obey a warning from the Nyansapo Council. Whatever the reason, he never sat on the golden stool. His name became a story mothers told their children. Power is not only given. Sometimes it is stopped before it begins. But the story becomes even darker. Years after the prince's death, a hidden witness account surfaced. A single sentence, written by someone who lived close to the palace. It said, "The king never sleeps alone. The shadow sits beside him." Those words opened a new door, in our investigation. Because in the Ashanti palace, there was a role spoken only in secret, a role given to one man, a man who stayed close to the king at all times, a man trusted by no one, but feared by everyone. This man was not simply a guard. He was more than that. He was an assassin assigned to the king. His duty was to protect the ruler from danger, but also to kill the ruler if the Nyansapo Council ordered it. One man, two duties, a protector and a threat in one body. The witness statement was clear. The king was never truly alone. A shadow always sat beside him, a shadow with a hidden blade. This tells us that the Ashanti Empire, like Benin and like Dahomey, understood a powerful truth. A kingdom is not only protected by warriors in the open, but also by silent hands in the dark. And if the Ashanti used assassins to remove kings, what does this mean for the death of King Agaja? It means the mystery is deeper than we thought. The shadows of Africa's ancient kingdoms were not accidents. They were systems. They were traditions. They were the tools of powerful councils who believed the greater good must come before the life of one ruler. And now, to follow the next thread in this mystery, we must return to Dahomey, to the most feared assassins of all, the Night Seekers. To continue our search for the truth behind King Agaja's death, we must return to Dahomey and step into the most feared and most deadly world in the entire kingdom, a world of warriors, a world of discipline, a world of silence. The Dahomey Amazons were known across Africa as fierce fighters. They defended the kingdom with unmatched bravery. They trained harder than the men. They fought with more skill. They moved with more precision. But deep inside this powerful army, within the walls of the palace, there was a smaller group, a group rarely spoken about in public, a group not recorded in official history, the Night Seekers. These women were not ordinary warriors. They were trained for something far more dangerous. Their job was not to fight on the battlefield. Their job was to move quietly in the palace and carry out secret tasks known only to the king and his closest circle. The Night Seekers were trained for close-quarter killing. No spears, no loud weapons, only quiet blades, hidden tools, and hands strong enough to end a life silently. They were taught to open locked rooms, to move without sound, to take down a target before he could shout for help, to leave no marks, no evidence, no questions. Some served as the king's bodyguards, but others served as the king's hidden hand of justice, and if the king ever became a problem, they could serve the kingdom instead. This is where the heart of our mystery grows darker. As Agaja became older, he became more suspicious. He worried about enemies inside his own palace. He feared betrayal from chiefs, from family members, and even from the soldiers who protected him. Some say he dismissed advisors because he believed they were plotting against him. Some say he slept in a different room every few nights, thinking that constant movement would keep him safe. Some say he stopped trusting even the Amazons, including the Night Seekers who lived closest to him. But the strange thing is this: no matter where he slept, no matter how many guards he changed, someone always knew where he was. Someone always found him. His fear grew stronger, his circle grew smaller, and the shadows around him grew darker. Then, years later, long after his death, a discovery changed the way historians looked at this mystery. A ritual blade was found in an old royal storage room. A blade with carvings used only by the Night Seekers. A blade with symbols that did not match ordinary weapons. One symbol stood out. It translated to a simple but chilling phrase: execution of a wayward king. The meaning was clear. The Night Seekers had the power to remove a king if the palace believed he had become a danger to the kingdom. It was their duty, their secret duty. So the question grows louder. Did King Agaja die because he was weak, or because he was marked by the Night Seekers, marked for removal? Did someone close to him, someone in his own palace, carry out an order he never saw coming? Was he killed not by poison or rival princes, but by the very protectors he trusted? The blade suggests that the Night Seekers were not only guardians, they were the kingdom's final weapon. A weapon used only when the king drifted too far from his duty or became too dangerous for Dahomey's future. So now the mystery becomes sharper. If the Night Seekers had the authority to eliminate a king, and if Agaja feared his own protectors, and if a ritual blade was marked for the death of a king who had lost his way, then we must ask the hardest question of all. Did Agaja's death come from inside the palace walls? From the hands of women who slept within reach of his door? From the shadows he once commanded, but could no longer control? To answer this, we must understand how these assassins were made, because the power of the Night Seekers did not come from the sword. It came from training, discipline, belief, and fear. And that takes us to the next part of our journey, the secret schools where assassins were born. To understand how Africa's royal assassins moved with such skill and silence, we must look at how they were made. Because these killers were not born. They were trained, built, shaped from childhood into shadows that served the throne. Across the kingdoms, Benin, Dahomey, and Ashanti, different methods were used, but all led to the same goal: to create a person who could kill without fear and disappear without a trace. In Benin, training began with plants. Young recruits were taught to understand every leaf, every root, every seed in the forest. They learned how a plant could heal a woman one day and stop a man's breathing the next. They learned to mix poisons that worked slowly, so death looked natural. And they learned to prepare deadly oils that could take a life with a single touch. This training was not simple. It took patience, memory, control. Because if the poisoner made even one mistake, they might die before their target did. In Dahomey, training was different. Here, the focus was silence and speed. Recruits practiced walking without sound. They learned how to open a door without shaking the frame, how to move through a room without being noticed, how to attack softly, and end a life before a scream could leave the mouth. Their bodies were trained to stay calm in darkness. Their minds were trained to stay cold under pressure. They repeated the same drills again and again until silence became their second nature. In Ashanti, training reached the mind. Recruits were taught discipline, emotional control, patience beyond normal limits. They learned never to show fear, never to show hesitation, never to show desire, anger, or weakness. Their spirit had to be still, even when their duty demanded the hardest acts. And then there were the rituals. Across all these kingdoms, assassins went through spiritual protection ceremonies. Priests blessed them. Elders prayed over them. Charms were tied around their arms or hidden in their clothing. The belief was simple. An assassin must be protected from the spirits of those they killed. If not, the dead could follow them, haunt them, or weaken their hand. By the end of this long process, a recruit was no longer an ordinary person. They became a weapon, a quiet one, a dangerous one, and a loyal one. But loyalty did not come from fear alone. It came from an oath stronger than family, stronger than friendship, stronger than life. Assassins swore to kill without hesitation. If the king or the council gave an order, they obeyed. They swore to die without confession. Even under torture, they would not speak the secrets of the palace, and they swore to protect the kingdom's hidden knowledge, even if it meant their own life would end. This oath bound them completely. It turned them into shadows that could not be broken. But even in such strict systems, not everyone could handle the pressure. Not everyone could become the perfect silent weapon. There is one story that breaks the pattern. The story of a young recruit in Dahomey. After months of training, he discovered a dangerous secret. He heard whispers of a planned killing inside the palace. A killing that was not meant for an enemy, but for someone with royal blood. Frightened by what he had learned, the young man escaped the palace at night. He told a village elder what he knew. He begged for help. He said he wanted to warn the kingdom, but 2 days later, he was gone. No one knows if he ran away in fear or if someone followed him, caught him, and silenced him forever. His disappearance became a warning to others. In the world of royal assassins, the price of knowing too much was often death. This story shows us something important. Assassins did not only protect the kingdom, they also protected secrets that shaped the rise and fall of kings. And now, as we continue our search for the truth behind King Agaja's death, we must look at what happened when these hidden killers met a new enemy, an enemy from across the sea. As African kingdoms grew stronger, their systems of hidden assassins continued to work in silence. But one day, a new force arrived on African shores. A force that did not understand the culture, did not respect the traditions, and did not know how to fight shadows. The Europeans. Colonial governors came with guns and armies, but deep inside, they were afraid of something else, something they could not see, something they could not control. They were afraid of Africa's invisible killers, the poisoners, the silent warriors, the councils that could remove a king with one quiet order. This fear made them take drastic steps. They began using the same tools African kings once used: bribery, betrayal, and hidden killing. European agents started paying chiefs and royal advisors to turn against their own rulers. They whispered lies. They offered gold. They promised power. Some chiefs accepted. Some resisted. Some tried to warn their kings. But many were caught between two worlds: their loyalty to their people and the new force that brought guns and pressure they had never seen before. African assassins, too, faced a painful choice. Their entire world was built on loyalty to the king, but now the king's power was threatened. His kingdom was changing, and the shadows were no longer safe. Some assassins chose to resist. They tried to protect their rulers and stop the foreign influence. Many died for this choice. Others disappeared completely. They left the palace. They returned to villages. They broke their oaths and tried to live quietly, hoping no one remembered their old life. And a very small few, joined the colonial networks. These were the ones who lost faith in their old kings, or feared punishment, or saw no future in a world controlled by strangers. The colonizers used them in secret missions to spy, to poison, to remove chiefs who resisted European rule. A system once created by African kingdoms was now being turned against them. We must ask an even harder question. If outsiders used assassins to destroy kings, how many deaths were truly natural? How many rulers fell to foreign lies? How many kingdoms collapsed not by war, but by secrets? To answer that, we must understand how history and the world tried to erase the memory of these killers. And that takes us into the next chapter, the silence that swallowed the shadows. As we look deeper into Africa's secret assassins, one question becomes clear. Why do we know so little about them today? The answer is simple and sad. These stories were not forgotten by accident. They were erased, cut away, buried on purpose. And now, to uncover the final pieces of this mystery, we must return to the death of King Agaja and ask the last, hardest question. Who truly killed him, and why? The answer may not be clear, but the clues point us toward a final, powerful revelation. We have traveled through 3 powerful kingdoms. We have followed the clues hidden in poison, in silence, in shadow, and in stories that survived only through whispers. Now we return to the heart of the mystery, the death of King Agaja of Dahomey. So, who killed him? After all our searching, 3 theories stand out. 3 possible truths. 3 shadows strong enough to end a king. The first theory is simple and old. A brother seeking the throne. Royal families have always carried jealousy, ambition, competition for power. Some say a brother of Agaja wanted the crown so much that he arranged for the king to die quietly. A quick act, a silent night, no witnesses, no questions. The second theory leads us back to Benin, to Omozel, to the silent hands, to the poison masters who left no trace. Dahomey and Benin were rivals, but also neighbors who watched each other closely. Many believe that a poisoner from Benin may have been sent into Dahomey to weaken the king or to remove him completely. A single drop, mixed into food, added to drink, or rubbed into the skin, could end a life without marks. The third theory is the one that frightens people the most. The theory that turns the king's protectors into the hands that removed him. His own Dahomean night seekers, acting under secret orders from a council higher than the king himself. Their duty was to protect the kingdom, not the man. And if the king drifted too far into fear, paranoia, or danger, the council might have decided that the throne needed a new ruler. The ritual blade that carried the mark "Execution of a Wayward King" is a strong hint that this decision may have been made inside the palace walls. These are the 3 possible answers, 3 shadows that hang over Agaja's final night. But the truth is this: we will never know for sure. The people who held the secrets have long returned to the earth. The documents were lost. The assassins vanished. The stories were broken. The mystery remains unsolved. And that is the power of it. Because in Africa's old kingdoms, power was not just carried by kings. It was also carried by the people who lived behind the throne. The ones who moved without sound, without name, without record. They shaped history from the dark, and then they disappeared back into it. Today, when we look at modern Africa, the pattern has not fully disappeared. Assassinations still happen. Leaders still fall suddenly. Power still changes hands quietly. Modern intelligence agencies, special units, and political actors sometimes use the same old methods: hidden deals, silent removals, poison, confusion, and secrets. It reminds us of one truth: the shadows never disappeared. They only adapted. They changed their form, but not their purpose. The same silence that once guarded kings now moves through modern governments. The same fear that lived in royal palaces now lives in political halls. The same invisible hands still shape history in ways most people will never see. And it makes us wonder, how much of what we call accident today is really shadow work from the old world, reborn in a new time? These stories were hidden for centuries, erased deliberately, silenced by power. But today, you have heard what few people ever learn. the truth behind African kings, and the shadows that stood beside them. If you want the full truth of Africa, not the version rewritten by outsiders, subscribe to Ancient Africa Untold, because the past is not finished. The shadows still move, and the next secret we uncover may change everything.